Hello everyone, my name is Igor. I'm 32 years old. When I was 13, I was struck by a 10,000-volt electric discharge. It happened just before my birthday. I was about to turn 14 the next day. I had just come home from practice and saw some kids playing soccer. I had to ask my mom for a long time to let me join them. It was as if she had a premonition. We started with soccer and then played another game, hide and seek. As usual, there's a boiler room in every apartment building with hot pipes on one side and transformers on the other, as I later found out. And those big doors to the transformer rooms had been left open for 2 years. What does this room look like? You enter what seems like a regular locker room. There are lockers on both the right and left sides, and one of these lockers was open. I climbed in and partially closed the door with myself inside, thinking I'd go a bit further back so I wouldn't be noticed, since it was dark anyway. At some point, I must have touched an arc with my ear, it seems, and I was thrown back. Usually, transformers pull you in, and all that's left of a person is ash. But I was thrown clear because, as I was later told, I was grounded. I was wearing rubber sneakers. I don't remember any of this. These are just witness accounts. I knocked out the electricity in half the neighborhood. There were fireworks. I inadvertently made a show for my birthday. I must have somehow burst out of that room in a state of shock, because right outside there was a sandbox. A man began to extinguish the flames on me with sand because I was literally on fire. Oh, the discharge was indeed 10,000 volts. And then my mother heard a noise. Someone was pounding on the door. She said she can't even recall how she rushed down from the 5th floor to catch me, because I was running around in shock, blackened from my neck to my waist, wearing a black t-shirt of which only the collar and a fragment remained. The next day, she said, all the doors had been securely shut and reinforced with iron, as if nothing had ever happened. They called an ambulance. I'm not sure what happened in those 20 minutes while waiting for the ambulance. I had 3rd to 4th degree burns covering 65% of my body. 4th degree burns are when even the bones are affected. My chest, stomach, down to the most vital areas. My first question in the hospital was whether everything was still intact down there. Then she told me everything was fine there. My fingers were almost gone. They could have been amputated, but they managed to save them. My mother was even prepared to donate hers, but the doctors said they wouldn't take. My entire back, my whole torso. I was lucky it didn't hit my face. I was put in intensive care, and for the first 2 months, the doctors strictly told my parents I wouldn't survive. I never lost consciousness. 2 days later, my mother told me that I had come to, and started talking to them. I remember seeing a yellow lamp in front of me, the one used to dry the skin because they had performed the first operation to remove all the burnt skin. My parents and my dance coach, who had come to visit, were there. I was practicing for ballroom dancing competitions we were supposed to attend in a week. When I woke up, my first question was something like, "Can I just lie here for another 2 days?" Of course, they told me, "Yes, a couple of days, and you'll be all right." Everyone was nearly in tears when talking to me, as if they were on the verge of breaking down. Everyone knew it wasn't just going to be 2 or 3 days. In total, let's just say, there were more than 20 operations. Skin grafts. They would take a piece of skin from my leg and attach it to another part of my body, creating a new wound on the leg. The pain was such that, psychologically, it was unbearable. Because all the initial operations were done under general anesthesia, they completely knocked me out, but then they switched to regional anesthesia because I had too many general anesthetics. Later operations were done under regional anesthesia, which only numbs the area being operated on. I spent about 3 months in bed, unable to get up. I remember one day I was able to sit up for about half an hour. I had a tube running through my nose all the way to my stomach just to swallow a bit of food, which was a whole process. For 2 months, whether I was lying on my back or my stomach, I constantly needed to be fed. I remember food going directly into my stomach. The next stage involved reconstructive surgeries under my arms. The new skin meant I couldn't lift my arms. They were stiff as logs. And then they did my neck because I couldn't even turn it to the right. The skin graft there wasn't done well initially, and it had contracted so much that they had to redo it. These were mechanical, reconstructive surgeries. I had to relearn how to eat, walk, and everything else. A lot of people died around me, some with fewer burns than I had. Many adult men simply couldn't handle it psychologically. Support was the most crucial thing. Not a single day passed without me feeling supported, without even a fleeting thought that I might die. And most importantly, it was my mom who, I can't imagine how she coped. The doctors told her every day that I would die, and she said she would go away, cry out all her tears, all the dire things they told her. But when she came to see me, she always put on a brave face, because she knew if I saw her crying and telling me the whole truth, it would only make things worse. I could see it though. She still came with red eyes, but she bore it all herself, on her own. My parents were even ready to sell our apartment just to save me. Yes, my parents filed a lawsuit against the state organization, but it turned out to be very complicated. But I'm confident, I can honestly say, that if I were as old then as I am now, we would have definitely won. But now, because of the statute of limitations, it's too late. I wanted to deal with it, but by the time I realized I could handle it, it was too late. It had been more than 10 years, and it wasn't a criminal matter. I was just lying there like a log. I couldn't lift an arm, nothing, and there would be about 7 doctors. They just lifted me up. They would stand me up vertically on the floor. My legs would shake for about 10 seconds, and then they'd lay me back down. And so it went every day, gradually, little by little. By the end of August, I walked by myself for the first time, just down the hospital corridor. The whole hospital staff, including the chief doctor, started applauding. When I began to face the outside world, my biggest concern was how people would perceive the new me, because I was really different. It was the worst period of my life, not when I was in the hospital, but psychologically, returning to the outside world as a completely different person. How would my classmates react? Because by the start of the school year, I went back to school, and my teacher was shocked. It was 9th grade. Some didn't know how to behave around me because I was all red and covered in acne from all the medications that were being metabolized. I looked creepy. Understand? Before this all happened, I was one of the leaders at school. Some classmates, my good friends, treated me as if nothing had happened, greeting me cheerfully. Others, with whom I wasn't as close, didn't know how to act, but there was no one who rejected me or made me feel alienated. Even new acquaintances, both girls and guys, I could see how they looked at me. As a result, I lost all my confidence. I returned to dance practice for the first time at the end of August, 3 days after getting out of the hospital. It was about seeing how things were, gradually easing into rehabilitation, stretching my arms, shoulders, and everything else. About 3 months later, my dance partner and I started to practice hard. We only danced the European program, where you only need to place your hands gently. I couldn't do more than that. 6 months later, we went to a tournament. Everyone was shocked to see me even wearing a tailcoat. The doctors hadn't forbidden me from dancing. It was a big training session. We had many dance partners participating. I was holding my partner's hands, and we were dancing when I slipped. The natural reaction is to throw your hands forward to avoid falling face first. That's what I did, and I pulled too hard. Since I could move my arms like this, but not thrust them forward without stretching the skin, it ripped under both arms. I was wearing a white shirt, and it was covered in blood. There was panic among the children and my partner. The practicing wasn't far, and my mom came right away. It was tough. New wounds opened up. Of course, my body will never be the same as before, but now I'm fully physically recovered. I have no problems now. There are still psychological moments, concerns about how people will look at me, but it's less now. I'll tell you, no matter what people were like, even the most insensitive, I never faced outright rude questions. The questions were always tactful. From both girls and boys, I never felt the need to respond harshly. Maybe I was just lucky for them, perhaps. It used to be really hard, like asking me to wear a short-sleeved shirt or a V-neck. That changed, thanks to my current wife. She encouraged me, telling me, "Stop worrying, you're fine, everything's good." Now, the next phase for me is dealing with my 3-year-old son. The next stage will begin when he starts school or something similar. That's what really concerns me the most. When people start asking about his father, that's something I dread. I don't want to put him in a situation where he feels uncomfortable. He doesn't understand it now. Being young and having 65% burns was a profound lesson for me at the time. And now, I realize that nothing in life is impossible.